It's Thursday at Gen Con, and the interviews just keep coming hot and heavy. And one of my favorite people to get a chance to talk to is Todd Rowland here at Aldrac Entertainment Group, or otherwise known as AEG. And I had a chance to talk to John Zinsser at Origins, and we covered a lot of bases there.
Awesome.
And you've been traveling the world, which I think was really amazing.
Thank you.
Just goes to show you what a cool company AEG is. I mean, honestly.
Well, that I was able to do that, right? That I was able to still continue to work and take the family around the world was just a huge blessing, and from working here. So I'm really grateful to AEG for that.
And you were able to elude that federal investigation as well.
Yeah, exactly.
They dropped all charges. So
Yeah. We didn't post a lot of Facebook pictures from the Caymans, but we were able to handle everything. So
all the money's there now.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's talk about what you got cooking. I saw last night at Trade Night demo a little bit of War Chest.
Yeah.
Which looks like a pretty interesting abstract war game where each of the players, I believe it's 2 to 4?
It is. Well, it's 2 or 4.
2 or 4,
it's,
right. Okay.
You play it as a one-on-one game or a 2-on-2 teams.
And one thing I thought was interesting was that everyone's army is going to be made up of different units every time. So it's they're kind of drafting their units, blind draft, I assume.
Yeah, there are 16 distinct units in the game, and your army consists of 4 of those. So when you're playing one-on-one, you'll draft or deal however you want to do it, and you'll each end up with 4, and it could be different every time you play. Whereas when you play with 2-on-2, everybody's going to have 4, which is going to make for a deck, or have all 16 units on the board, I should say, which gets really interesting because some units refer to friendlies, and your partner's chips are also considered your friendlies, so you can interact that way and give each other different effects.
And each of the units has, for an example, like crossbowmen and pikemen and knights. They all have a specific little ability that makes them stand out and be different than all the other units.
Right, something unique. Like in most cases, to move on the board is one action, and then to attack is another. But the swordsman, for instance, after he attacks, he gets a free move. So he can hit and move. The heavy cavalry is just the opposite. They move then attack, right? Whereas the archer can use his special to shoot up to 2 spaces away and hit something without even having to move. So there's lots of different effects.
If I recall, I believe the pikeman, if you attack the pikeman, the attacker is going to lose one of his units.
Yes, the pikeman.
I didn't even play this game. I still remember it.
You just learned it through osmosis, right? So yeah, the pikeman, when you attack him, you will take his chip off the board, but he's also going to take the attacker with him. And when a chip is removed from the board, it's permanently removed. It will not go back to its owner's bag. So there is a sort of an attrition that goes on as the game goes on. You have to be real careful about overcommitting your units and things like that. But when you begin the game, you have 2 of each of your units in your bag. You draw 3 at the beginning of a turn, and then you use those to do things that turn. So like, I'll play something, you play something, I'll play something, and then once we're out, we reach in and draw 3 more. When we can't draw 3 more, then we take all of our discarded chips and put the ones we use to perform actions back into the bag and continue. That's why when you use a chip to take a chip from your reserve and put it in your discard, it'll later come back, so you can begin to add more of certain units to your rotation.
Right. So that is actually a title that I would think, because I had a lot of war gamers who come to the gaming gang, a lot of war game coverage, and a lot of people ask me, hey Jeff, do you know of a good gateway game to introduce like my son or daughter into war games? And a lot of times I'm sort of like, that's not like kind of lame? No, not really. But this looks like something that would be a really nice sort of gateway into heavier conflict simulations.
It is, and it's kind of a fun abstract on its own, right? It's a pretty easy game to play. Plays in about 25 to 30 minutes once people are familiar with the chips. It's not too many to learn, and you kind of learn quickly which ones have movement, which ones have defense, things like that.
Sure. So let's also talk about another relatively new release is Space Base
with a lot of A's. Yes. Space Base is a dice rolling game where you're going to begin the game with your own space base that has 12 docks in it for ships. So anytime you roll the dice, let's say you roll a 2 and a 3, I get used to activate my 2 and my 3 or my 5. So you can use the combination or the individuals. Early in the game, it's usually more advantageous to use the individuals because your docks at the beginning of the game may get you 1 money, 1 colony, something like that. as you buy upgrades, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where you kind of have to visualize it. You take the existing upgrade, flip it around backwards, which puts a red strip at the top, then put the new one on top of that with the red part sticking out. Now, the red part scores whenever the opponent rolls that number. And if I upgrade again, now there's 2 red parts sticking out. So I can begin to create my board to where I'm scoring different things based on what the opponent rolls. It creates a lot of interaction. You're constantly watching every player's rolls. You can use the opponent's rolls much like you use your own, where you either combine them or use them separate. So you can really create some advantageous things there. Ultimately, you're trying to be the first player to 40 victory points. When you spend your money, you lose it all, though. So even if you've collected 35 money and you buy something that costs 5, all of it goes away. It's all gone. Now, the way you counteract that is some cards, when you roll them, will give you colonies. For every colony you have, let's say I have 6 colonies, when I spend my money, it stops at 6. It doesn't go all the way to 0. So it's beginning again at 6 and moving on from there. So that gives you a little bit of rebounding in it. Space Base also has a lot of interesting combinations. You can set up effects that will, instead of triggering the number that rolled, it triggers the one to the right or the left. So you can stack certain numbers stronger and then have more ways to get that number and different things like that. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been really well received. We're already working on an expansion for 2019. And I would highly recommend everybody check it out.
You heard it right from Todd.
Right from me.
In fact, just buy it now. Just buy it now. You don't need to know anything else.
Don't even worry about playing it. Just buy it.
Just buy it, right. Leave it in shrink because it'll be that much more valuable.
Yes, exactly. Years like down the line.
Just like your action figures. Just don't take these games out of
Leave
shrink.
it to your grandchildren. Bury it in the backyard.
Put it with your old TSR AD&D modules that are still in shrink.
There you go.
So there's another game that's on the horizon. There's a few on the horizon. Now I know Edge of Darkness. Everybody's like, "Oh, Edge of Darkness, when's it coming?"
It's in production. It'll be out before long. It's still at the factories.
Next year, correct?
Yes.
So don't have to concern ourselves with that too much.
You can hold it down.
Right, because I've released plenty of news about that. But there is another game that is on the much closer horizon, as far as I understand, and that is Scorpius Freighter?
Yeah, Scorpius Freighter. It's coming out this November. In Scorpius Freighter, each player is the captain of a ship that operates in the Scorpius star cluster, where the local government has become rather tight-fisted and sort of tyrannical. So the players, having been normal shipping...
That's sounding like real life now.
The players...
No, I'm not going there.
Having been normal, captains of merchant ships are now beginning to smuggle things in and out of the system, black market goods, different things of that nature. So as you play, you're all going to be upgrading your crew members, upgrading your ship's holds, taking on various contracts and side jobs to try to make money and victory points and things like that.
Right.
However, to visualize it, there's these 3 planets with these plastic ships that fly around them and on different spaces that make a circle around each planet. Well, the ship on this circle, on this planet, the next space might be a contract. So if I want a contract, I just move that ship to the contract and I take the next contract. Well, 2 more spaces away might be upgrade a crew member. Well, the next player wants to upgrade a crew member, so he skips a space and slides it 2 more to the crew member. Once a ship makes a full navigation around the planet, it gets a token put on it to represent cargo. Now, anybody can move any of the 3 ships, and it could be that moving this ship 2 spaces gets a upgraded crew member, but moving this one only goes 1 space, so I'll do that one. Once any of the 3 ships is fully laden with cargo, you've put too much heat on everybody, and the government clamps down, and the game's over. So you're all trying to become better smugglers, but if you're all upgrading and doing too much too fast, it creates too much attention on everybody, and then whoever has managed to do the most wins the game when that inevitable time comes. So there could be a time where if you're far enough ahead, you might want to bring the heat and start making choices that are harder to make. Nobody can catch up to you. But during the early game, as you're still figuring out your strategy and what you're going to do, you probably want to try to move things slower to give yourself time.
Any other titles that are on the horizon that we're not mentioning?
A few others on the horizon that we mentioned at the trade day next year. We have a few new ones coming out. We have a game called Tiny Towns, which is a fun little city building game. Very cramped space. You only have a 4x4 grid to build your city in, and the way that the cube calling works is really cool. I can't tell you a whole lot about it right now. We also have a game called Monsters and Meeples. which is about the meeple town, which is trying to defend itself from the monsters, which are also meeples. They have a lot of good meeple jokes. The meeple wizards refuse to use fire because it's just too dangerous around wood, and they won't use that. And the meeple clerics worship the great carver, and all the other things like that. It's a really cute game. And then we also have...
Do you have a game called Greedy Kingdoms?
Oh, yeah, Greedy Kingdoms. Greedy Kingdoms is super fun. It was from...
I know nothing about it, but I did see the box at
It's
demo night.
yeah, it's from Hayato Kizuragi from Japan. It's part of our Big in Japan line. It actually came out in Japan several years ago, but Bruno Faiduti had played it and thought it was really fun and began making some suggestions for some new cards and some adjustments. They worked together on it to create the edition that we're bringing out.
Right.
And it is super fun. It's a two-player game, bluffing game, where you're sending agents across face down, and your opponent has to look at the resources that you have to spend, try to figure out what you're probably going for, and then outthink you and block with the same agents, because you all have the same 9 cards. And if I send my knight and he blocks with his knight, then it doesn't get through. But if I send my knight and my cook and my duke, and he blocks with a duke and a knight and a burglar, my cook gets through, and I get whatever resources the cook would get and then use them to buy things. And so there's a lot of the, well, I think he's going to block me with this, so I need to play this, but then he'll think I'm playing that, so I need to do this other. And I could play a card that I don't even, but if you don't have the resources to pay for that agent, then it doesn't matter anyway. Right, and knowing what your opponent has in resources helps you decide what they're probably trying to do.
Right, exactly.
So,
Anything else we should tackle?
we've got Train Maker coming out, a dice rolling push your luck train game where you're trying to move goods from one city to another. We've got Magical Treehouse, which is a real-time drafting game where you're attempting to build multi-level tree houses for points and craft potions and all sorts of other things. That's part of our Big in Japan line. And then, of course, right now, Thunderstone Quest is back on Kickstarter through the 17th. We're real excited about that.
Yeah.
That is Thunderstone Quest Back to the Dungeon introduces solo and co-op play. Which is a new part. Anybody who did not back it the first time who backs it now will get everything, including all the stretch goals from the first Kickstarter and the Back to the Dungeon. If you did back it the first time, you will be able to back just the new content and be able to get that to add it to your existing one. So we're not going to make you buy the entire gigantic game again, although it'd be nice if you did.
Well, the reality is that for the champion level, which was, if I remember correctly, $100.
Right.
I mean, it was jam-packed with content.
It's massive. It's a massive
way more
game.
than what's going to come out in the retail edition.
Right. Well, we are going to be bringing it to retail soon, this year, and I can't really comment on exactly what's going to be in retail compared to that now. So we'll know pretty soon. But that is not in my house. So
I'm just telling you from what I think. If you're into, it's an awesome game. Loved it. Gave it a 9.5 out of 10.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it that much.
Thank you so much.
My nephew Cameron's right back here. He really loves the game too. He's behind the camera today. And I have to say, and no money has changed hands here.
Oh, absolutely not. None.
If you dig...
None of that Cayman money has moved at all.
No, not at all. No. It's not in my account in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, you really, really got to back the Kickstarter that runs, 17th?
17th of this month is when it ends.
Because it is a fantastic game, and I love just the revamping of it. And finally, that whole light mechanic works, as opposed to being the weird kind of clunky
You got
thing
the
that-
actual movement and things like that. Yeah.
So really, really love what you guys did.
Thank
with
you.
that.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience, Tom?
Gosh, just thank you all for supporting our games. Thank you for playing. We hope you are really having a lot of fun with them. That's the whole reason we do this. And just thank you, Jeff, for featuring us and continuing to talk about us. We really appreciate it. We really do.
You've been behind the gaming gang since pretty much the beginning. I mean, it's going.
I remember
nuts.
having pizza with you on the first night.
Well, you got sick.
I did actually get sick.
Right.
I had to go back to the hotel room.
We were going to the Alliance Day over in Fort Wayne. And we live in the Chicago area.
Right.
And we got to sit with Ken Height.
Right.
And John
Zinser. Yeah.
And you were sick.
I came to the restaurant, but I became ill.
You're like,
I was like, I got to go back to the hotel room. Yeah, that was a fun night. But
no, he saw Elliot Miller and I. He was like, these two jamokes, no, I'm not feeling too hot. Oh, yeah, gotta go. Todd, as always, great talking with you.
Hey, good talking to you too, Jeff. Thank
Enjoy
you
the
so
show.
much for coming by.
You got it. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.